January 9, 1945, 10 a.m. Hatten, France. Private First Class Vito Bertoldo crouches at the entrance to a battalion command post. Outside, German artillery shells are screaming into the village, explosions tearing through buildings. The battalion staff is evacuating, moving to an alternate location before the Germans overrun their position. Someone needs to stay behind and cover the withdrawal, a suicide mission. Bertoldo is here because he's a discipline problem, a troublemaker who didn't get along with the mess sergeant. His company commander sent him to guard duty to get him out of the kitchen. Now the battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel Edwin Rusteberg, needs volunteers to hold the command post. Bertoldo steps forward without hesitation. "I'll stay, sir." The other two guards follow his lead. They'll stay too. What happens in the next 48 hours will earn Vito Bertoldo the Medal of Honor. It will prove that heroes come from the most unlikely places, and it will show that sometimes one man with a machine gun can hold off an entire battalion. Because before he was a war hero, Vito Bertoldo was just a half-blind coal miner from Illinois who nobody wanted in the army. December 1st, 1916, Decatur, Illinois. Vito Rocco Bertoldo is born on South Franklin Street in a working-class Italian neighborhood. His father, Rocco Bertoldo, is a coal miner from Tricarico in the Basilicata region of Italy. His mother, Mary Antonacci Bertoldo, immigrated from Italy in 1894. Vito is one of 9 children, 5 sisters and 3 brothers. The Bertoldo family lives in poverty. Rocco's wages from the coal mines barely enough to feed 9 kids. 9/21 tragedy strikes the Bertoldo family. Mary Bertoldo dies when Vito is only 5 years old. Rocco is left alone to raise 9 children while working in the coal mines. He can't do it, the burden is too much. At one point, Vito and his siblings are placed in a local orphanage. The family stays together as much as possible, but times are hard. Young Vito grows up fast, learning early that life doesn't give you anything for free. His sister Christine later remembers him as quiet and shy, but fun-loving around family. "Vito and I always were close," she says, "but in some ways I really didn't know my brother. He was kind of quiet and shy as a young boy going to St. Patrick's School, but he was always teasing one of us." There really were no signs of what was to come later. Vito attends St. Patrick's Catholic School and then Decatur Public Schools. He doesn't finish high school, the family needs money, and he needs to work. He follows his father into the coal mines, backbreaking work in dark tunnels underground. Later, he gets a job as a truck driver for Oaks Products, a company that makes automobile parts. The work is steady, the pay is decent. Vito is building a life. August 2nd, 1941, Vito marries Dorothy Sutter of Decatur. He's 24 years old, working as a truck driver, living a quiet life in the town where he was born. 4 months later, everything changes. December 7th, 1941, Pearl Harbor. The Japanese attack the U.S. Pacific Fleet. America enters World War II. Vito Bertoldo's brother, Peter Paul, joins the military. Peter Paul will eventually become a Catholic priest, but first he's going to war. Vito wants to serve alongside his brother, wants to do his part. There's only one problem. Vito Bertoldo has terrible eyesight. Without his thick glasses, he can barely see 10 feet in front of him. When he goes to enlist, Army doctors examine him and shake their heads. "You're classified 4F, they tell him. Unfit for military service. Most men would take the 4F classification and go home. It's a free pass, no shame in being physically unable to serve." Vito Bertoldo refuses to accept it. He keeps trying, keeps showing up at recruitment offices, keeps arguing his case. "I can still serve," he insists. "There must be something I can do." August 1942, the Army finally relents. "Fine, we'll take you for limited duty only. You'll work as a military policeman in the United States. No combat, no overseas deployment." Bertoldo enlists as a private. He's 25 years old, skinny, wearing thick glasses. He leaves behind his wife, Dorothy, and his job at Oaks Products. But being a military policeman isn't enough for Vito Bertoldo. He wants to be where the action is, wants to fight for his country. He starts lobbying for a transfer to a combat unit. The Army refuses. "Your eyesight disqualifies you." Bertoldo doesn't give up. He keeps asking, keeps volunteering, keeps making himself a nuisance. As the war drags on and casualties mount, the Army starts reconsidering some 4F classifications. They need bodies, even bodies with bad eyesight. Finally, the army agrees to send Bertoldo to infantry training. There's a catch, though. They won't let him be a rifleman. Instead, they assign him to the quartermaster corps. He's going to be a cook. Private Vito Bertoldo is assigned to Company A, 1st Battalion, 242nd Infantry Regiment, 42nd Infantry Division. The 42nd is called the Rainbow Division because its soldiers come from all across America. Bertoldo ships out to Europe as a company cook. He's finally going to war, just not the way he imagined. 1944, the 42nd Infantry Division arrives in France. They're part of the 7th Army, fighting their way through eastern France toward Germany. Bertoldo works in the company kitchen, preparing meals for the combat soldiers. It's important work. Armies march on their stomachs. But Bertoldo hates it. He didn't travel thousands of miles to peel potatoes and stir pots. He wants to be out there with the riflemen in the fight. His frustration boils over into conflict with the mess sergeant. According to his company commander, Captain William Corson, Bertoldo becomes Company A's only discipline problem. He doesn't get along with the mess sergeant, argues constantly, makes trouble in the kitchen. Corson needs to do something about this troublemaker. December 1944, the Germans launch Operation Nordwind. This is Germany's last major offensive on the Western Front after the Battle of the Bulge. The target is the U.S. 7th Army in Alsace-Lorraine. The 42nd Infantry Division is right in the path of the German attack. Battalion headquarters requests 3 soldiers from each company to stand guard duty at the 1st Battalion command post. Captain Corson sees an opportunity to solve his discipline problem. He includes Bertoldo in Company A's contingent of guards. Get the troublemaker out of my kitchen. Let him stand guard duty for a while. Bertoldo is thrilled. He's finally getting closer to the action. What nobody knows is that this guard duty assignment will change his life forever. January 9th, 1945, morning, Hatten, France. Hatten is a small village in Alsace near the German border. The 1st Battalion, 242nd Infantry, has its command post set up in a building in the village. Bertoldo and 2 other soldiers are on guard duty at the entrance. German artillery opens up, shells screaming into Hatten. The Germans have broken through the battalion's main line of resistance. Infantry and tanks are advancing on the village. Lieutenant Colonel Rusteberg, the battalion commander, makes a decision. We're evacuating the command post, moving to an alternate location. The staff begins packing up radios, maps, and documents. But someone needs to stay behind and cover the withdrawal. If the Germans capture the command post while the staff is evacuating, they'll be slaughtered. Rusteberg looks at the 3 guards. I need volunteers to hold this position while we withdraw. Vito Bertoldo steps forward immediately. I'll stay. The other 2 guards follow his lead. If Bertoldo is staying, they'll stay too. Rusteberg nods. Good luck. The battalion staff evacuates, moving quickly through the shell fire to the alternate command post. Bertoldo and the 2 other guards are alone. Bertoldo sets up a .30 caliber machine gun at the entrance to the building. German tanks are visible in the distance, advancing through the smoke. Behind them, German infantry. The Germans are close enough now that Bertoldo can see individual soldiers. He waits, finger on the trigger, glasses perched on his nose. The tanks fire, 88mm shells slamming into buildings around the command post. The concussion is enormous, walls shaking, windows shattering. Bertoldo doesn't move, just aims his machine gun down the street. The German infantry advances behind the tanks. They're expecting easy pickings. The Americans are retreating everywhere else. Then Vito Bertoldo opens fire. The .30 caliber machine gun roars, tracers arcing down the street. German soldiers drop, the rest dive for cover. Bertoldo keeps firing, short controlled bursts, conserving ammunition. The Germans can't believe it. Someone is still defending that position. They return fire, machine guns and rifles, bullets tearing through the air. The tanks fire directly at Bertoldo's position. 88mm shells explode around the command post entrance. Bertoldo is completely exposed, standing in the street firing the machine gun. He's in full view of the enemy, 75 yards from the nearest tank. Any rational person would retreat, find cover, get the hell out of there. Bertoldo stays at his gun. For nearly 12 hours, Vito Bertoldo stands in that street. 12 hours under direct fire from tanks, machine guns, and rifles. The 2 guards with him are killed early in the fight. Now Bertoldo is completely alone. The Germans keep attacking wave after wave. They can't understand how one man is holding them off. Every time they advance, that machine gun opens up and cuts them down. The tanks keep firing, shells exploding all around Bertoldo. The building behind him is being torn apart. Walls crumbling, roof collapsing. Bertoldo finally moves back inside the building. He straps his machine gun to a table and positions it to fire through a window. He has a clear view of the main approach to the command post. The Germans continue their assault, tanks firing from 75 yards away. One shell slams directly into the room where Bertoldo is firing. The explosion is massive. The concussion picks him up and throws him across the room. He slams into the wall, slides down next to one of the dead guards. His ears are ringing, his glasses are gone, he can barely see. Most men would stay down, the fight is over. Vito Bertoldo gets up. He stumbles back to his machine gun, shakes his head to clear it, and resumes firing. The Germans see the machine gun open up again and can't believe it. How many men are in there? It must be a full platoon, maybe more. There's no way one man could withstand this kind of bombardment and keep fighting. But it is one man and he's not done yet. The battle continues into the evening. 2 German armored personnel carriers rumble toward the command post, followed by a tank. This is it, the final assault. The carriers stop, German infantry dismount and begin advancing. The tank is firing directly at Bertoldo's position. Bertoldo waits, calm, patient, even though a tank is shooting at him from close range. He lets the German infantry get close, very close. Then he leans out the window and fires his machine gun directly into them. Germans fall in clusters, the attack falters. The survivors retreat, dragging wounded comrades. Bertoldo has held. Night falls on January 9th. Bertoldo has been fighting for nearly 12 hours straight. No food, no water, no rest. The 2 guards who volunteered with him are dead. He's alone in a destroyed building, surrounded by Germans. They'll move to a 3rd location, regroup, establish a new defensive line. But before the evacuation can begin, the Germans attack again. This time they're hitting both command posts simultaneously. They've brought more tanks, more infantry, more artillery. This is an all-out assault to wipe out the 1st Battalion command structure. Bertoldo hears the artillery bombardment intensify. He knows what's coming. German tanks and infantry pour toward his position. More of them this time, they're determined to take this building. Bertoldo's machine gun is still operational, still loaded. He opens fire again. The Germans advance despite the machine gun fire. They're using the rubble for cover, working their way closer. Bertoldo grabs white phosphorus grenades and starts throwing them. White phosphorus burns at extremely high temperatures, creates thick white smoke. The grenades explode among the advancing Germans. Soldiers screaming, running, trying to escape the burning phosphorus. The attack breaks. The Germans retreat again. But they're not done. A German tank, less than 50 yards away, fires directly at Bertoldo's stronghold. The shell slams into the room where he's fighting. The machine gun is destroyed, blown to pieces. The explosion hurls Bertoldo across the room again. He hits the wall hard, slides down, half-conscious. His machine gun is gone, his position is compromised. The Germans know they've hit something. They advance confidently now. Bertoldo shakes his head, forces himself to his feet. He can barely stand, his head is pounding, everything hurts. He's been blown across the room twice by tank fire. Any normal person would be dead or unconscious. Bertoldo picks up a rifle. If he can't use a machine gun, he'll use this. The battalion staff is evacuating the alternate command post, running for their lives. Bertoldo positions himself at a window and starts shooting, one shot at a time, picking off German soldiers as they advance. He's buying time for his comrades to escape. He knows he's probably going to die here, but he doesn't stop shooting. The Germans are everywhere now, closing in from multiple directions. Bertoldo fires until the rifle is empty, grabs another, keeps firing. Finally, an American soldier appears at the door. Everyone's out, let's go. Bertoldo fires one last shot, throws down the rifle and runs. He's the last man out of the command post. January 10th, 1945, morning. The 1st Battalion has established a new defensive position. Vito Bertoldo is still with them, still fighting. He's been in continuous combat for more than 48 hours. No sleep, barely any food or water, blown across rooms twice, shot at by tanks and machine guns. He has a concussion, internal injuries, he's lost his glasses and can barely see. But he's alive, and so is the battalion staff. Lieutenant Colonel Rusteberg looks at Bertoldo with a mixture of awe and disbelief. "You held them off," Rusteberg says. "You held them off for 2 days." Bertoldo just shrugs, exhausted beyond words. "There was a job to be done," he later tells reporters. and I did all I could to keep them from running our country. We are free from them, that is all that counts." Later in another interview, he's more candid. "I must have been crazy," he says, "but just the same, I guess I did a great deal of damage by myself." The official army record estimates that Bertoldo killed at least 40 German soldiers. Many more were wounded. For more than 48 hours, one man with poor eyesight held off battalion-sized German forces. He saved the 1st Battalion command structure from being destroyed or captured. He bought critical time for the battalion to reorganize and establish new defensive positions. Rusteberg describes Bertoldo as a one-man army. Captain Corson, the company commander who sent him to guard duty as a disciplinary measure, is amazed. The troublemaker from the kitchen just became a legend. The 42nd Infantry Division continues fighting through France. Operation Nordwind is eventually defeated. The Germans pushed back. In April 1945, the 42nd Division crosses into Germany. On April 29, 1945, the division liberates the Dachau concentration camp. More than 30,000 prisoners are freed. The horrors of the Holocaust exposed. Vito Bertoldo is there, witnessing the aftermath of Nazi atrocity. Years later, he'll say, "We did a lot of things over there no human being should want to do. But seeing Dachau, seeing what the Germans did to innocent people, reinforces why the fight was necessary." May 8, 1945, Germany surrenders. The war in Europe is over. Private First Class Vito Bertoldo has been promoted to Master Sergeant. He's earned the Bronze Star Medal with Oak Leaf Cluster, the Purple Heart, and the French Croix de Guerre. And he's been recommended for the Medal of Honor. December 18, 1945, the White House, Washington, D.C. President Harry S. Truman stands in the East Room before a group of Medal of Honor recipients. Master Sergeant Vito Bertoldo is among them. He's wearing his dress uniform, looking uncomfortable in the formal setting. Truman reads the citation aloud. Master Sergeant Bertoldo fought with extreme gallantry while guarding 2 command posts against the assault of powerful infantry and armored forces. On the close approach of enemy soldiers, he left the protection of the building he defended and set up his gun in the street. There he remained for almost 12 hours, driving back attacks while in full view of his adversaries. Completely exposed to 88mm, machine gun and small arms fire. The citation describes everything. The tank shells being blown across the room, the white phosphorus grenades. With inspiring bravery and intrepidity, Master Sergeant Bertoldo withstood the attack of vastly superior forces for more than 48 hours, time after time escaping death only by the slightest margin, while killing at least 40 hostile soldiers and wounding many more during his grim battle against the enemy hordes. President Truman places the Medal of Honor around Bertoldo's neck. Then he shakes his hand and speaks quietly to him. "I would rather have this medal than be president," Truman says. Bertoldo later tells his family that meeting President Truman was one of the highlights of his life. He also meets General Dwight D. Eisenhower, the Supreme Allied Commander in Europe. For a coal miner's son from Decatur, Illinois, it's almost too much to believe. December 23, 1945, Decatur, Illinois. The city organizes a massive celebration for its hometown hero. They declare it Bertoldo Day, a parade through downtown and Central Park. Thousands of people line the streets to see the Medal of Honor recipient. Local businesses and political leaders raise $750 to present to Bertoldo. There's a ceremony at Decatur High School, speeches, applause, congratulations. Bertoldo stands on stage, uncomfortable with all the attention. He gives a short speech typical of his modest nature. "The best way to honor the dead," he says, "is to try and make it up to the living, who have given some of the best years of their lives in the interest of peace." He's not talking about himself. He's talking about all the soldiers who served, the ones who came home and the ones who didn't. 1946, Vito Bertoldo is discharged from the United States Army. He returns to Decatur briefly, but his marriage to Dorothy has fallen apart. The war changed him. The things he saw and did created a distance between them. They divorce, though they remain on good terms. In 1946, their son David Valor Bertoldo was born. The middle name Valor reflects the circumstances of his father's heroism. David will grow up to serve in the United States Marine Corps during the Vietnam War. He'll earn the Bronze Star Medal following in his father's footsteps. After Vietnam, David joins the California Highway Patrol and serves for 23 years. 1946, President Truman appoints Bertoldo as a Veterans Administration representative. He works in Chicago for a year, helping veterans navigate the VA system. 1947, Bertoldo transfers to the San Francisco VA office. He spends the next 11 years working with veterans. He assists handicapped veterans, homeless veterans, helps them find employment. It's meaningful work, giving back to the men he served with. But Bertoldo never talks about his own heroism, never uses his Medal of Honor to get special treatment. Most of the veterans he helps have no idea who he is. 1958, Bertoldo marries May Clary of Kentfield, California. May is a widow with 3 adult children. They build a life together in Northern California. That same year, Bertoldo leaves the Veterans Administration. I felt I had done my job, he later explains. He starts a landscaping business in Marin County. It's modest work, nothing glamorous, but Bertoldo enjoys being outdoors, working with his hands. The business does well at first. He's a hard worker, reliable, honest. When California builds a new highway cloverleaf on his original location, he moves the business to Sacramento. His sister, Christine, says the business was doing well until he became ill. 1960, Bertoldo meets President John F. Kennedy, another thrill for the coal miner's son, another president wanting to shake his hand. In Forest Park, Illinois, a Chicago suburb, they name a street after him. Bertoldo Road, one of several streets named after Illinois Medal of Honor recipients. 1966, Vito Bertoldo is diagnosed with cancer. It's aggressive, spreading quickly. He's admitted to the VA hospital in Martinez, California for treatment, the same VA system he worked for, now caring for him in his final days. July 23, 1966, Martinez, California. Vito Rocco Bertoldo dies at the VA hospital. He's 49 years old. He's survived by his wife May, his son David, his siblings back in Illinois. May arranges for him to be buried at Golden Gate National Cemetery in San Bruno, California. Section 2, Row M, Grave 192A. His headstone is simple, white marble like all the others. It lists his name, his rank, his dates of service, and 3 words: Medal of Honor. Most visitors to Golden Gate National Cemetery walk past his grave without knowing the story. They don't know about the half-blind cook who talked his way into combat. They don't know about the troublemaker who got sent to guard duty as punishment. They don't know about the 48 hours in Hatton when one man held off an entire German battalion. 2018, Netflix releases Medal of Honor, a documentary series. Episode 5 tells the story of Vito Bertoldo. Actor Ben Schwartz portrays Bertoldo in dramatic recreations. New generations learn about the cook who became a one-man army. Today, Vito Bertoldo is honored in multiple places. The Army Quartermaster Foundation inducted him into their Hall of Fame. The Department of Veterans Affairs featured him as Veteran of the Day in 2021. The Friends of the World War II Memorial post tributes to him on social media every January 9th. His grandson, David Christopher Bertoldo, served in the United States Army during the Gulf War. 3 generations of Bertoldos have served their country. But most Americans still don't know who Vito Bertoldo was. They know Audie Murphy, they know Alvin York, the famous Medal of Honor recipients. They don't know the Italian immigrant's son with bad eyesight who wasn't supposed to be in the Army at all. They don't know the cook who volunteered for a suicide mission because it was the right thing to do. They don't know the master sergeant who stood in the street for 12 hours under direct tank fire. Here's what the story of Vito Bertoldo teaches us. Heroes don't always look like heroes. Bertoldo was rejected by the Army, classified as unfit for service. He had terrible eyesight, was skinny, quiet, worked as a cook. Nobody looked at him and thought, this man will save an entire battalion. But when the moment came, when someone needed to volunteer for a suicide mission, Vito Bertoldo stepped forward. Not because he was fearless. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing what needs to be done despite being terrified. For 48 hours, Bertoldo fought alone. Tanks shooting at him from 50 yards away, machine guns, rifles, grenades. Twice he was blown across a room by tank shells. Twice he got up and kept fighting. He lost his glasses and could barely see, fought on anyway. He suffered a concussion and internal injuries, fought on anyway. Lieutenant Colonel Rusteberg called him a one-man army. The Germans thought they were facing a full platoon, maybe more. They couldn't comprehend that one man was holding them off. But it was one man, a half-blind cook who refused to give up. After the war, Bertoldo could have leveraged his Medal of Honor for personal gain. He could have gone on speaking tours, written a book, made a fortune. Instead, he went to work for the Veterans Administration. He spent 11 years helping other veterans, men who'd served and sacrificed. Then he started a landscaping business, modest work, honest work. He never bragged about his heroism, never sought attention or recognition. When he died in 1966, most people in California had no idea a Medal of Honor recipient lived among them. His sister Christine said it best. Vito was kind of quiet and shy. There really were no signs of what was to come later. But that's the point. True heroism doesn't announce itself. It waits quietly until the moment comes, then it acts. Vito Bertoldo lies buried at Golden Gate National Cemetery. His grave is marked by a simple white headstone. Sometimes there's a small American flag pushed into the soft ground beside the marble. But the stone gives only hints of his story. It doesn't tell you about the coal miner's son who lost his mother at 5. It doesn't tell you about the man who was rejected by the army but enlisted anyway. It doesn't tell you about the cook who became a Medal of Honor recipient. It doesn't tell you about the 48 hours in Hatton when one man became a legend. Vito Bertoldo never wanted to be famous, he just wanted to serve. He served in the worst possible conditions, against impossible odds. And when his country called on him to hold the line, he held it. For 48 hours without rest or relief, time after time escaping death by the slightest margin. That's what the Medal of Honor citation says, but it can't capture what it must have been like. Standing in that street with tanks firing at you, being blown across a room and getting back up, fighting alone for 2 days while your comrades escaped, killing 40 men and wounding countless others, doing all of this because there was a job to be done. Vito Bertoldo said it himself. There was a job to be done, and I did all I could to keep them from running our country. We are free from them, that is all that counts. Simple words from a simple man who did something extraordinary. That's Vito Bertoldo, coal miner's son, truck driver, army cook, Medal of Honor recipient, a man who wasn't supposed to be in the army but talked his way in, a man who was sent to guard duty as punishment and became a hero, a man who stood alone against impossible odds and won. His story deserves to be remembered, not just in history books or on Netflix documentaries, but in the hearts of everyone who believes that one person can make a difference. Because Vito Bertoldo proved it beyond any doubt. One man with a machine gun and unshakable courage can hold back an army. One cook with bad eyesight can save hundreds of lives. And one quiet, modest hero can inspire generations with his example. Vito Bertoldo is buried at Golden Gate National Cemetery, but his legacy lives on, in his son who served in Vietnam, in his grandson who served in the Gulf War, in every veteran who refuses to give up when the odds seem impossible, and in every person who hears his story and realizes that heroes walk among us. They don't wear capes or seek glory. They work in kitchens, drive trucks, plant flowers in people's yards. But when the moment comes, when someone needs to step forward, they do. Without hesitation, without expectation of reward, just because it's the right thing to do. That was Vito Bertoldo, and his story will never be forgotten.